Hello everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Cass, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, and today we're going to be kind of continuing the Halo videos. It feels weird to say continuing, because next year I'm going to also be jumping backwards because of course I'm going to be talking about the new Halo game. This video was initially recorded before I knew anything about that, and so if there's no mention of it, that's why, but I feel like I need to mention it here now that I'm recording it after Halo Campaign Evolved came out. It's not out yet, but like they talked about it, and I was not even close to aware of it, so once again, this video won't talk about it, but it is kind of interesting to be in this place because at one point I would have said that this is kind of the end of at least a certain narrative that I'm trying to push, or at least close to it, and in this video it feels that way too. But I don't know exactly how to feel about this game, at least in where it stands in these videos, because, like, at one point this was it. This was finishing the fight, and there was a lot of hype around it, too. So the real question is, with how Halo is going today, and realistically how Halo has gone, is this one worth it? Well, let's find out. So when it comes down to the story of Halo 3, it's really hard to summarize this one because, like, there's a whole bunch going on. But I feel like I could summarize this really easily in saying it's really just time to finish this fight on all fronts. And that's really the best way to describe this game, because the biggest thing of note is, one, the Prophets are now looking for this thing called the Ark. The Elites have also learned that the Prophets were betraying them, but that was something that was learned in Halo 2. It actually culminates in this game where you get to see them. You also realistically are ending the Flood. This is just all the things that are really kind of coming to a head within this game. It's really the conclusion of what Halo wanted to be, and I think that it's a good conclusion. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, and it took me almost forever recently to kind of understand everything that's happening, and I don't know if it's 100% conveyed well, but I do think that the story they're trying to push is good because it definitely is conclusive, right? It definitely feels like they're trying to wrap things up, and I think they did it for the most part in a good way, because they solve all, like, the major problems that I can think of for the most part, right? Later Halo games definitely introduce more problems, and problems that I never thought about because I've never touched the books or any of, like, these supplementary shows. So, like, Halo definitely could continue on with this point, but if you're somebody like me that followed Halo, this is probably a good conclusion. It was one that I didn't know how to feel about at the time, but I think all in all, it's a smart way to end it, because they do wrap up 90%, I think. I would even say 100, but this is me not knowing the, like, supplementary material. It wraps up the game franchise pretty well. With that being said, let's move on to the gameplay. Halo 3's gameplay is a masterful combination of the two prior games. Both games had different kind of philosophies to it, where Halo 1 felt a little bit more open and felt like there was a little bit more exploration, and Halo 2 focused a little bit more on combat, and this game does an amazing job at mixing and combining both, while also having just stellar balance as well for at least the campaign. I think that the campaign did an outstanding job at what it did for the gameplay, teaching you so that you can understand how the game works, so that when you go into multiplayer, there's not much of a confusion. With that being said, the scenarios that were put within the campaign are also awesome, and I really enjoy them, making this probably one of my favorite Halo out of the trilogy when it comes to just the gameplay itself, giving you everything that you wanted from it without the clunky nature of the other games. They do have that. Halo 1 and 2 are great games, but there are moments where I kind of have to sigh and go, oh, I don't want to do that right now. And Halo 3 has those, but to a lesser degree, in my opinion. The only parts that I 100% get tired of is the Flood, but it should be a frustrating point, because the Flood is kind of this intrusive being, this intrusive species, so it works very well that they are a constant looming threat, and that's something that's great about this game. That can go more into the presentation part, though. But the Flood is part of the gameplay, and bringing them up, actually, one of the greatest things about them within this game is they are not just reused enemies. This time they have a new kind of species that comes with them, and it makes them outstanding because they actually now, like, the Covenant, like the UNFC forces, now actually have a force that makes sense and is fun to fight, but also it's not something where in the other games I just go, ugh, whatever. It's now interesting to see these gross, disgusting creatures now have their own soldiers, and the cool thing about them is they evolve. So if you don't kill them fast enough, they get stronger and stronger, which incentivizes you killing them, and it makes it fun to have to go through the flood segments instead of fighting, you know, twisted UNFC soldiers and twisted Covenant. And I think that's really cool as well, that we have now other forms of the Flood with the Twisted Covenant, and with that being said, the Covenant's change is also felt too, with it being mainly brutes instead of the elites, which I think is great because that brings the weaponry of that faction to a different place, going for more of a brutalist approach versus the sleek and, well, elite weaponry that the elites had, and I enjoy that. It doesn't take away the elites' weapons though, because they do repurpose and use them, but it's cool that they added onto it and added new weaponry. So I think that that's a great thing. When it comes right down to it, I don't normally like to talk about the online existence, but the online existence of Halo was felt. It was one of the things that even got me back in the day playing online. I played with my friends and I loved it, from Forge mode to being able to play the games online, the interesting gameplay modes that were there. This game was masterful. I loved how much you could do within the gameplay, and I like how it's still alive argumentatively today through the Master Chief Collection, being allowed to do some of the stuff that you were able to do in the past. It's harder to get into Halo now, because people that have been playing it since the 360 days, so there is people that have mastery of the game, but I still think, despite that, the online is fun from the last time I played it. I have not touched online, and I do not know the ecosystem of today, which doesn't matter because hopefully this episode will still exist later in the future, so it doesn't matter about the ecosystem of it, but I do think that back in the day it was well worth it, and I can see where people today are still playing it. I enjoyed what the online brought, and I enjoyed pretty much everything that came from Halo 3. Halo 3's gameplay is masterful and should be something that should be appreciated when it comes to first-person shooters. Halo 3 proves itself as one of the best first-person shooters that can be, and argumentatively one of the best first-person shooters of its era, being able to compete with games like Call of Duty and Battlefield, despite the fact that it was there before or at the same time, depending on how you look at it. But it does show where Halo was, and I hope that when you play this game, you can kind of feel the prestige that this game has. You can feel how good the gameplay is, because I enjoy it. It's not a perfect game, mind you, especially in the mindset of today's first-person shooters, but I think that it definitely is worth a playthrough today. I've had to play this game at least 3 times for this video because this video has been delayed multiple times. So for me to replay it and pick it up each time and not have a different opinion, which I did for Halo 2, which I did for Halo 1, it's interesting to see that this game still is good within the gameplay department. But that's really up to you to decide. I can say that it's good for me, but I'm not really keeping up with first-person shooters of today, especially since first-person shooters aren't really the thing anymore. Like, yes, we have our Call of Duties, and yes, we have our, Apex Legends and stuff like that, but it seems like in the ecosystem we're in today, we are a lot more diverse with Marvel Rivals and Overwatch and other kind of games that I say Overwatch like it matters, but you get my point, right? We have these other kinds of forms. So what makes a first-person shooter is vastly different than what was at this point a thing. And I think the greatest thing about this one is not only its online presence, but its campaign as well, being well worth it alongside the Forge mode. With that being said, let's move on to the presentation. When it comes to the presentation of Halo 3, my god was it spectacular. From the giant set pieces to the amazingly cohesive monster design and also character design, to finally just rounding out everything, to the new monsters being invented, to the music being amazing as usual. This was an outstanding game presentation-wise. Especially if you're somebody that was a Halo fan, and especially if you're somebody that liked online. This is when you were able to customize your Spartan the most too. And like I said, I don't normally like to talk about online, but that felt, it's impossible to explain how that felt for me, to be able to design your Spartan or Elite, and it made me feel something at the time, being able to have new armors and the customization that was allowed. Halo allowed you to change your color and some things, like your emblems, but this one went above and beyond with that. Outside of that, though, Halo 3's presentation is phenomenal, something that was spectacular for the time, and I think even today it looks good. With that being said, I still do kind of have a little bit of a frustration at the fact that Halo 2 and 1 have this beautiful redo where Halo 3 is left in the dust. In my opinion, the greatest of the three. This one I feel like deserves it more, but I also don't honestly know how they would do it. Halo 3 still looks really good to this day. It's not the greatest looking game of all time. To be fair here, this era was kind of plagued with that. We were still kind of feeling our way out with graphics and the limitations that were there. It kind of will look like how I feel Halo 2 looks to some people. Halo 2 was amazing for the time, but looking back at it now, the initial game, I would much rather have the remake. And that's maybe how some people feel about this one. I would love to see that treatment, especially now with where Xbox and Microsoft is. Yes, they're a successful company, but they don't have games to back it right now, while I'm talking, in this year, which is 2025. I've been waiting for another Halo game outside of the newest one, and I can't even remember his name. Halo Infinite is the game. Halo Infinite was the last time we saw Halo from this point, to my knowledge, because I haven't even been keeping up with it. And that one was okay, but like, that's not what this is about. I'll eventually get to Infinite and how it feels. I don't know when that's going to happen. After all, the Halo videos took a long time to come out. But 3 is the one that just, I don't know, it felt great, and I think that I'd like to see a remake, but there's that weird question of should it be that way or not? What would you really change? Maybe just upping the graphics and frame rate, but they kind of already did some of that. I don't really know where a remake would go, or a redesign, not a redesign, but what they did with Halo 1 and 2 would go with 3, since 3 is so iconic, and that may be how people felt for 1 and 2 at the time, right? Because those weren't really my favorites. 3 is it. 3 is great. I will always remember where I was when the Scarab fell from the sky and came down, and we had to fight it, right? The last time we saw a Scarab in Halo was either being controlled by Sergeant Johnson or was in a controlled environment, or we didn't have to deal with it, where Halo 3 asked you to deal with it. I remember where we were when we lost certain characters. I remember the first time we were able to use the Hornet. I remember so much nostalgic things about this game, and that might just be it. Because the hype for Halo 3 was real, right? It was real, and it was worth it. Despite the fact that I have said the story wasn't something that was great to me, that's the overall narrative. The game itself, story, the one that it told was great. It was emotional, and it was a great conclusion. Not the perfect conclusion, mind you, but it was a great one all in all. And I think that throughout all of this game presented itself well. It presented itself amazingly. Not only in the campaign, but in the multiplayer. The maps were beautiful and great. They had so much to give, alongside giving us something like Forge, allowing us to create other things, and maps coming out alongside time, because there's new maps that came out, new armors, and so on and so forth. Presentation-wise, this game is a dream. And that might just be the nostalgia talking, but I think it was well worth it the whole way through. Halo 3 was a phenomenal game, and it definitely presented itself amazingly. How I feel and hope if Halo ever returns will do. It's not the last time we see a show this good for Halo. I feel like we have a few more times in us. At least one more time. But that might be a reach. With that being said, let's move on to what really matters. If you can't get your hands on this game, what's the point of all the hubbub? Let's move on to accessibility. This segment never ceases to amaze me with how pricing goes. Normally eBay is the place that I like to go for my pricing information. It's not the only one. I use other sites and I like to compare, but realistically that's the one that's normally has the lowest prices. And today that one has forgone me. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because Halo 3 has only really been released on 2 consoles, technically, with the Xbox 360 alongside the Master Chief Collection, which is in multiple places, mind you. But it's interesting to me that eBay is the unreliable price today, because on eBay, you can buy the original Xbox 360 version of Halo 3 for like $4 to $30 to even, you know, 20 something dollars. It's looking like 20 to 30 is the more gone for asking price, which is crazy because I could have swore that this game was very accessible. This is one of those where you definitely need to look, but it surprises me at all that people are even asking for $30 at all. It's crazy. Realistically, the price that makes the most sense to me is the GameStop price, which is $4.99. That is reasonable, that makes sense, and I feel like it's takes me aback a little bit that eBay is the one that doesn't have the price for me. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. I could just recommend the 360 version. It's a shame that Microsoft is wilding out so much. When I initially recorded this video, it wasn't that way. This is a video that took a lot longer to happen. Halo tends to do that for me, but I'm absolutely ashamed of where Microsoft is nowadays. With the price raising and all that other stuff. It absolutely appalls me that they're doing this, and I feel like they should be very ashamed, but who cares? I'm a small-time YouTuber. You don't care what I have to say about pricing, and if you do, thank you, but Microsoft doesn't. They're not going to hear this, but I do feel like if you are listening to this, I just recommend going out and getting a 360. The 360 was an amazing console anyways, and there are so many great games, so just go for it. With that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. What can I say? What can I honestly say to convey the good of this game? There are many games that I love this much. There are many games that make me feel this way. But this is one of those that I feel definitely does hold up to me. I can see where some of the flaws might be, especially looking at it from the lens of where we are in this year. And since it was so long ago, I can see where people wouldn't see the love that I have for this one, but it is still an amazing shooter. Like I said before, and I'm going to repeat until the cows come home, if people still think GoldenEye is good, then people will think that this is a masterpiece. When it comes to how well this game still plays, being the perfect mixture of Halo 1 and 2, upping the action pieces, allowing you to witness and fight bigger creatures and beings, and fight them on their own level sometimes, or at least feel like a David and Goliath. I'm talking mainly about the Scarab versus the Hornet. That was a fun and amazing fight that I look forward to and love replaying, having the enemies return but also evolve, having the Covenant change. This felt great. Did it feel like the greatest finale that Halo could have ever given? No. But then again, I don't know what I honestly was expecting, right? Would it feel right to have a grand giant boss at the end of this game? Because, like, I feel like the one thing that I didn't like is something that I appreciate now. The final boss is not something that I expected, but it's something that I should have expected, especially with the way the Halo series works. I didn't know what I was expecting. I wanted more from the narrative, but as I get older, I think that it works out perfectly fine, especially with how Halo works, right? I was expecting some big giant boss or something, but instead we got what we got, and that's fair. Right? I'm fighting with myself to talk about the goods 100% because this game is phenomenal. The story is something that I grapple with, but even then I think that it's a good story. I think that the set pieces and the actual things that they put forward are great, but I don't know if it feels like it's an amazing conclusion narratively, but I do think that it helps and feels nice all the way through. I have to figure out how I feel about that, but I still feel like if you're somebody that's following Halo, it's fitting, it feels nice, and I feel like you truly did finish the fight. I feel like the reason why I don't like the ending is because I played this game at such a lucrative time for me that I didn't want the narrative to end. And I still feel like the narrative didn't end well enough, but when you end it the way you did, it's perfect because it leaves it up for a sequel that may not be necessary. It concludes the story you have, and I don't think I liked that at the time, and now I do. And now I kind of wish to a degree it stayed where it was. Now I appreciate what it did more, but at the time the narrative wasn't there, and argumentatively it kind of wasn't. I feel like there definitely was changes as time goes on to what they wanted to do, and that's fair, right? After all, the Prophet of Truth isn't even the main antagonist anymore, and Gravemind is concluded in a certain place, so it to my knowledge. So it really, you got what you got, and I think I kind of appreciate that Halo didn't try to tack in a boss like they did in the second one. I like how it kind of concluded like the first one. I like how the gameplay is so god damn buttery smooth. I love the feelings of the past that Halo 3 gave me online, slurs and every other terrible thing that was said back in the day in the lobbies, because that's when it was wild. Yeah, you guys say Call of Duty was bad, but Halo was there too. It was just of the time. And I don't miss those, but god do I remember them. This game was a perfect storm for me as a game, and nostalgia may carry this whole thing, but I 100% have to disagree, because this game was super hyped back then, and I feel like the hype was equal for me. At least I remember watching YouTube videos on this. This is one of the things that helped me start my YouTube journey. Not the thing that pushed me forward, but the thing that kind of made me a viewer of YouTube, watching the Halo fan animations or Halo fan things and talking about the people's excitement and how Halo 3 beta was something that even I was interested in. I didn't play it, but it was interesting, right? It's probably what made Crackdown a game that sold well. We'll get to Crackdown eventually, but all in all, I don't think I can convey how good this game is. This game is phenomenal to me. And I think if Halo ever decides to bring itself back, I think they need to kind of follow on what made Halo 3 so good. And I can answer what that was. That was the acknowledgement of everything prior. It has to be the perfect amalgamation that Halo 3 was for Halo to continue. Technically. Sometimes looking at the past is the way to go. Sometimes you have to look a little further. And that may be the answer to one of the best Halo games out there, but that's once again just my opinion. With that being said, no game is perfect. I honestly have no clue how people feel about this franchise today. Despite me thinking it's good, kind of did leave Halo in a interesting place. Halo has been put in an interesting place not even by Infinite, but by 4 and 5 and so on and so forth. Halo is a game that kind of, I think, once Bungie left, feels like a game that isn't what it used to be, and that's not 100% a problem. I don't dislike everything that happened afterwards, but with that being said, I don't think that that should be what tarnishes Halo 3 in general. I think that instead we should look back at what made it great, such as games like Reach, 3, ODST, and 1 and 2, of course, and even Wars to a degree. I think that that's what Microsoft should look to for Halo. Now, what does that have to do with the bad of this game? I am glazing this game, but in reality, we have to acknowledge that it is an older game. And I cannot tell how the newer generation will feel about these games. I have no clue, because first-person shooters have changed so much even within that time. Games like Call of Duty have become more prevalent and became kind of what first-person shooters are. Halo was that at one point, but it isn't that anymore. Even Halo has taken up some of the Call of Duty isms, such as aiming down sights, and I think that that's a great evolution, but I think that with that being said, those lack of things within this game may be the issue, right? The lack of so much. I don't know where Call of Duty's at anymore. I don't even know if Call of Duty is a prevalent game anymore, but playing games like Cyberpunk and, you know, many other games that have shooting segments in them or shooting-based games, it feels like a lot has changed more towards how shooter games are played. Overwatch and so on and so forth have changed the game so much, and Call of Duty, Battlefield, yada yada. So I don't know where this one stands, but god do I still think it's great to this day. I think if you give this one a chance, I think it's still great, but also I can see where the lack of the bells and whistles of the modern day may be what turns people off. With that being said, let's move on to final thoughts. So, was the fight really worth finishing? Yeah, I remember before this game came out, there was a whole bunch of hype for it, and even around the time I was in school, there's a bunch of hype for it, but this game's hype kind of died and existed in a never-ending place of just content. It was a game that was, like, really, really good, and it didn't need to be talked about afterwards because we were too busy playing it. We were too busy enjoying it, and I'd argue at a point I feel like I kind of miss games like this. This was an amazing game to come back to for the campaign alone, and even being allowed to play the Master Chief Collection's version of Halo is really, really fun online. It's still as fun as it was back in the day to me. Now, I do not understand or know how people in the modern day shooting games feel, because I still play some modern ones, but I just don't know how you would feel coming to this one, since there's not a lot of quality of life changes, but I think that if you give it a chance, you would like it. It's a really great game. It's a really fun game, and I think that if you have the chance and you have not played Halo 3, go play all of them. Mind you, play 1, 2, and 3. But I think that this game's amazing, and I think it's still worth it today, and I think you should check out the trilogy. With that being said, I'll see you next time here on Nostalgia Goggles, where I have no clue where I'm going next, because it's either ODST or we're going back to Halo 1. What a time we live in.